So in the wake of last Monday's terror attack in Boston, an interesting dialogue has come to light. Whether or not more businesses should have terrorism insurance. You heard right, terrorism insurance. Even if you don't know what it is, a lot of businesses in urban areas, they already have it. But do more need it? With me now is Robert Hartwig, president of the Insurance Information Institute. Bob, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
You know, this is one of those things I heard so many people say last week, we need to be prepared. This is the new normal. This is the era we live in. So the logical extension of that is, do we need to be insured against it? Who thinks they're covered but they're not on their standard policy?
Well, many people might think they're covered but are not. But every business is actually offered terrorism coverage every year. Insurers have to offer it.
Big, small, everybody.
Big, small, and everybody in between. Now, many big businesses do purchase it. Unfortunately, many smaller businesses do not.
So who do you mean by big? So a lot of people like IBM, JP Morgan, the companies that you trade, they have
Right,
it.
companies with a lot of real estate, infrastructure, a lot of heavy investment on the ground. But a lot of small businesses, just your average business on the street, small restaurant, bar, that kind of thing, many do not purchase the coverage.
Is it expensive?
No, it's not expensive at all. No, in some cities you can buy it for $25-50 a year, something like that.
Yeah.
It depends on the risk in your city and the type of industry you're in, and something like a sports stadium, something like that. Of course, it's going to cost more.
Right, absolutely. Who would it make sense to get it? I mean, for example, I understand a lot of small businesses right here in Times Square have it. That's something that's been a target. Makes a lot of sense. If you were a mom and pop business, even if you were small, it would be worth investing in that. But if I have a restaurant in a town square somewhere, it would be ridiculous.
Well, let's think about this. One of the largest attacks in U.S. history was the Oklahoma City bombing. That was Oklahoma City, not Times Square, not Boston. So that was kind of a medium-sized city out in the plains. So really, any business in America could be vulnerable to it, no matter where you are.
Seems like your odds are almost nothing, though, unless you're in very close.
Well, that's a mistake a lot of people make. For instance, Hurricane Sandy, everyone thought that they couldn't get flooded, and in fact they did. And a lot of people didn't have flood coverage. Many people think the same thing with terrorism. If this is the new normal, we should expect more attacks like this in the future, unfortunately.
So if I have a standard policy, it's not covered, what would they say to me? I would, my store has been blown up. Luckily, I'm okay enough that I'm making a phone call to try and figure out afterwards, you know, the store, the glass is shattered, this and that. I'm going to call them and they're going to say, no, it's an act of terror, it's not covered?
Well, if the act is certified by the Treasury Department, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General, then it is deemed a terrorist act. If you bought the coverage in that instance, you are covered. There's no question about it. But if you didn't buy it, unfortunately, you would not be.
All your damage is not covered at this point. So people along the Boston Marathon route where we saw that glass shattered, they're just out?
No, not at this point. We're awaiting a certification on the part of the federal government. We'll see if that happens. If that never winds up happening, then, as it turns out, your standard coverage for fire, smoke, explosion would apply.
But if that does happen, those shopkeepers along the route can't collect?
Those with terror coverage would, in fact, collect.
But if they don't?
Right, if they didn't buy it, then, in fact, they wouldn't.
What about other types of insurance, casualty, health insurance, all that? It doesn't matter whether you were injured or whether your spouse died as a result of terror?
No, there are no exclusions for terrorism on life insurance or on your home or on your automobile. It's really business-related. Or if you're a worker who was injured or killed on the job, you're covered no matter what. It is never excluded under workers' compensation policy.
I was going to ask about that. So workman's comp, you're safe.
That's right.
So what would you say to people? I mean, obviously, you're connected to the industry. You want people to go out there and buy insurance. So we say that in full disclosure. But, you know, these people along the route, I don't think people have thought about that their stores, if it's declared, are not covered. So what would you do? You would call and say?
Call your agent. Call your agent. Call your company now. And if you're not covered, buy the coverage. Unfortunately, these sorts of tragic events are also learning events, whether it's a flood, whether it's a terrorist attack, whether it's an earthquake. Nothing, unfortunately, sells insurance like a disaster, and many people run out and buy the product after the fact.
No, I mean, it's just very interesting because I wouldn't have thought about that. You know, another thing that could happen to these poor people along the route is that they could find themselves just at a loss for that money. Anyway, Robert, thank you so much for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate your time. All right, so it is our money question of the day. Have you ever thought about buying terrorism insurance? Almost everybody responded no, but we did get one Facebook post that made us laugh. It said, yes, I have several. Rifles, handguns, shotguns, oh goodness. We want to hear from more of you. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/MelissaFrancisFox or follow me on Twitter at Melissa A. Francis. All right, coming up on Money, Netflix was